important than what is going on in Libya. Now, Libya has been for 3 years marred by violence, started with chaos that pitted the East against the West, and it has been enlarged with lots of infightings, and then the situation was thought to be settled when an agreement that took place in 2015 was made, and the Sukhayrat agreement, or the so-called Sukhayrat agreement that took place in Morocco. After that, we have seen militias that are infighting together, but who belong to the two parties in power. In fact, one issue is that the existence of the Libyan National Army has been putting a little bit of extent to some of the extensions of militias. But the infighting of those days have taken very particular stage. Nowadays, what we are speaking about is the infighting over control of oil, or over control of oil ports, particularly the area of the crescent of oil, which is found in Ras Lanouf, Sidra, and that area. That has been very much making it difficult to draw a battle line, because there are lots of militias, there are lots of entities who are involved. We don't know the affiliation really of who are those militias, who are they supported by, or what is going on in Libya. Today there was an important meeting, a quartet meeting that took place at the Arab League, joining the Arab League Secretary General, of course, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief, the African Union High Representative for Libya, and Mr. Martin Kobler, the UN Libyan envoy. This was the first quartet meeting to be taking place. Another one will be taking place later on in Brussels. But today, what they have agreed is to still support what they called trials for making Libyan parties sit together for dialogue. Today we'll be speaking about the chaotic scene in Libya, what could be seen as the concrete solution to this Arab country. How can we really save the Libyan civilians from what they are suffering from, and all that and more we'll be discussing later on in our show. Before we proceed on with our discussion, first let's have a quick look on the Arab news that took place during this week, and we'll come back for discussion.
Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held a joint press conference with his Jordanian counterpart Ayman Mohammed al-Safadi in Cairo. During their talks, the two top diplomats reviewed means of boosting bilateral relations in various domains. Preparations for the coming Arab Summit and a number of regional issues were also tackled during the meeting. Senior Palestinian official Saeb Uraiqat on Thursday urged the international community to act to preserve the two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and curb settlement activities in the West Bank. He spoke in the West Bank, where Palestinians went to create their state, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was set to continue his discussion with U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy after future settlement construction. A recent report by a Beirut-based UN agency that promotes development in Arab countries concluded that the Israeli establishment an apartheid regime. The U.S. military said that it had carried out an airstrike in northern Syria against an al-Qaeda target, but denied deliberately targeting a mosque where at least 42 people were reportedly killed. According to the U.S. Central Command statement, U.S. forces conducted an airstrike on al-Qaeda in Syria meeting location on March 16th, killing several terrorists. The statement added that the command will look into any allegations of civilian casualties in relation to the strike after the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that 42 people had died in an attack on a nearby village mosque, most of them civilians. More than 100 people were reported wounded in the mosque attack in a village just over 30 kilometers west of Aleppo. An Iraqi commander said that Iraqi forces have gained ground from militants inside the old city of Mosul, an area that could see some of the toughest fighting of the battle for the northern metropolis. Iraqi forces launched an operation on February 19th to retake the west side of Mosul, the most populous area still held by Daesh. The old city, where hundreds of thousands of civilians were believed to have stayed under Daesh control, is a warring of narrow streets that restricts the use of large armored vehicles. Iraqi forces launched the operation for recapture of Mosul, the militants' last major urban bastion in the country.
Right, welcome back. And the situation in Libya and the fight on oil, the war for oil inside Libya, and this is what we will be trying to show you so you can really understand on the map, on the ground, what is going on. Now, this is the whole Libya. There are two areas where there are refineries and areas of oil to the east and to the extreme west. Now, to the east, which is the main emphasis that we are speaking here, this is the crescent of the area of oil in this particular area where there is Ras Lanov, Sidra. It's between Sirte and Brega and Benghazi, or this is the crescent area that includes 70% of the oil in Libya. This is the area that has been witnessing all the infighting lately throughout this month. We have seen throughout this month a change in hand in controlling this area twice. The first one, or three times, because the first one, it was under the supervision of the Libyan National Army led by General Haftar, and then the Benghazi Defense Brigades. It is said to be an Islamist militia, but it is not very well known to be who are supporting them. Reportedly, they are being supported by the GNA, or the General National Government, or the Government of National Accord. But the National Accord deny that they have ordered them to do such attacks. However, those brigades have attacked those refinery and areas of oil there and have retaken or recaptured them from the Libyan National Army. Then the Libyan National Army started regaining control of the area, and were able to regain almost all the areas. Yesterday there was a very important protest in Tripoli, where they have seen thousands of Libyans calling for ending the chaotic scene in Libya, calling for an end to the malicious control of the chaotic scene, calling for a united army and police. Why this scene has been or has deteriorated particularly recent? For the war for oil. Now, as I said at the very beginning, there was a quartet meeting today, but it was not very much clear what new do they have or can they give. And asking them about a possibility to gain momentum, to find consensus among the parties. The UN envoy, Mr. Kubler, said that they are exerting their utmost effort in order to gather this momentum and find consensus among the Libyan parties. Particularly, we're speaking about the Presidential Council, or the UN agreed on Presidential Council, and other represented in the Parliament and the State Council, who are supporting the Libyan National Army, and that's for sure. This is really the situation. This is what is going in Libya. When we speak about why this whole situation descended into such chaotic scene, we have to say that it all started in 2011 when the NATO started their strikes over Libya and never completed this mission. And the death of Muammar Gaddafi, after which militias that started to control the area with many weapons on the ground, and that was pitting East against the West. But today the whole situation is going in a different area where we are expecting chaos to gain the ground again in Libya. We hope not, but this is the situation. Let's watch this report and we'll come back.
The Arab League hosts a four-way meeting on Saturday attended by African Union, European Union and United Nations. On Thursday, the Libyan unity government said that armed groups in Tripoli have a signed ceasefire deal ending a four-day battle for control of the Libyan capital. The city has been paralyzed amid exchanges of rocket and artillery fire between pro-unity government forces and rival militants, including groups allied with former Prime Minister Khalifa Gouil. Thursday's deal cements a UN-backed government of national accord control over large parts of the capital. It provides for an immediate ceasefire and calls for armed groups that do not recognize the GNA to leave Tripoli within 30 days. Libya's former Prime Minister Khalifa Gouil was wounded in heavy fighting in the capital Tripoli on Wednesday, but his injuries are not life-threatening. Militia loyal to the ex-premier exchanged artillery fire with forces of the UN-backed government for several hours before withdrawing from their headquarters in the guest palace. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait has condemned renewed fighting in the Libyan capital. On Tuesday, Arab League foreign ministers convened in Cairo. During their 147th regular round, the ministers discussed the Israeli-Palestinian issue and the ongoing conflict in Syria. The situation in Yemen, Iraq and Libya, as well as efforts to combat terrorism, also topped the agenda of their talks.
Right, welcome back. And yes, this is the situation in Tripoli as we have seen in the report. This is the situation here in this crescent area of the oil or the crescent area of oil ports as we have seen, and this is the situation in Libya. To highlight the issue, we have with us over the phone Dr. Salah Abdallah, political analyst. Good evening to you, sir. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Salah.
Yes, but the voice is very low.
I'll try to raise it as much as possible. Can you hear me well, sir?
Yes, better.
Right. So we're speaking about the situation in Libya. We're speaking about how things descended, particularly in the past 2 days. We've been seeing some of the reports on some infighting at the capital itself. We've seen protests in the capitals with thousands calling for a united army and police, and the infighting on the oil ports still ongoing. How do you read the whole scene in Libya?
The question of Libya is so complicated. Many armed groups, each group is related to a country outside Libya. So most of the war which is happening in Libya is part of the problems outside Libya. As example, Russia and Europe, both of them have problems together. That's why they are against each other in Libya. The National Army, with his leader leader, General Haftar, is trying to control Libya, or at least the important places like the oil harbors, but of course the groups which is related to Qatar and Turkey and so started was trying to capture it since about 2 weeks, and then they lose it again because of the army again restore these important places. What happened in Tripoli is the same thing. They want to prove one of the, we have two cabinets in Libya. One of them is related to the extreme groups. They are trying to control Tripoli. The people in Tripoli, they fed up of these groups and they want the army to enter. They want an army and police. They want security. They want safe. They are tired from this militia. The question is now is whether the world is ready to solve the problem of Libya, or they just leaving the Libyan to be in the hill with these military groups so they can divide Libya to states at the end. This is the question now. What the outside world is going. The Arab League now, there is a meeting which we call it quadrant meeting between the Arab League, the African Unity, and the United Nations, and the European Union. These four, of course, Egypt and Algeria and Tunisia is sharing in that meeting.
No,
we
actually,
hope that they can have a political formula to collect